Good evening. This is Cab, here to drive you crazy. And just to inform you guys that the title that you see right here is not going to be clickbait, but I'm going to explain exactly what had happened and exactly why, you know, believing in something can actually be very effective for you in the long run. So, my last week, my wife was actually out of town. She had, almost week long business trip to be in another place, pretty far away. It's like, depending on how fast you're driving, if you go about speed limit the entire time, you would probably get there in about 2 hours. And if you really were just doing how I had probably suggested before, which was in another video when I talked about driving in the Philippines, and I'll probably leave a link in the description below for you guys to go and check out that video to say I might have some new opinions on that, but it does depend, I would say, where you're driving to. So the first and foremost on it, again, when I talk about driving here in the Philippines, it's exactly the complete opposite of how I've ever learned to drive back at home, where everything is about, obeying the rules of the road, understanding what speed limits are around areas, especially in certain places where they have what they call, the police trap areas, where a lot of people tend to go speeding or any faster than what the necessary, speed limit is posted. But here in the Philippines, I've come to understand that there's a lot of people here who do not have their driver's license, but if they have a vehicle, they technically have an ability to drive, because unless you're actually getting pulled over, you technically don't need to show any real evidence that you have a driver's license. But speeding has always been a big thing. People driving on the opposite side of the roads to get around cars, people swerving in and out of lanes just to continue driving. You'd see it's a crazy thing to deal with, and especially, like I said, I have a stick shift, which is something that I'm still trying to get adjusted to. Being here is something that makes me even become a little bit more uncomfortable with the other people and how they handle their driving as well. Now, I would say probably from the last time I posted that video to currently, I've gotten a lot better with my driving, and unfortunately, I've become more adjusted to how people drive around here, which is why I feel like there is a little bit of sense of comfort now when I am driving. But obviously, where I'm going to take this story now is going to explain how I may actually start going back to saying I shouldn't feel so comfortable doing what I am doing. So, again, my wife was out of town, and I was actually just going to go and pick her up. I had my wife's sister, her cousin, the wife's sister's children, and as well as my baby in the car. We're approaching this area, which my wife had always warned me about, and especially on certain days, then certain time periods of the day where there are actually police, or not necessarily maybe just police, but just, enforcers, as they would call themselves, that are out on the road. They have their speed guns, and they literally would, cite you or have any other kind of thing happen. And at the time, I wasn't necessarily thinking I was doing anything too bad. I was obeying the rules of the road pretty well, because again, I had a whole lot of people in the car, and I didn't want them to feel uncomfortable knowing that if a speed limit was, say, 50 miles or 50 kilometers per hour, since Philippines, that there would actually be any reason for them to think that I was driving too fast. But I guess even considerably, 10 kilometers an hour over is still considered speeding. So I ended up entering into this area, which is a very heavy city area, early-ish afternoon, and there I see is like the approaching guard gates that you normally would drive around, where there's like military bases or whatever. And I'm approaching there, going about 60, and there is a sign that is posted that does say 50. And all of a sudden I get some guy with a gun pointing at me, telling me pull over. And I'm thinking, no way, I'm really getting pulled over. And of course, go off to the side, roll down my window. The guy is talking to me, and unfortunately, I'm foreigner, and then he's speaking to me, and I'm assuming it was Tagalog, because I'm not exactly 100% sure about the different kind of dialects at the time. But he's talking to me, and with everyone else in the car, they speak Ilonggo, and so most of them actually don't even understand Tagalog themselves. And he's, talking to me, and I'm kind of like looking at everyone else like, what's he saying, and he's saying, do you understand what the speed limit is here? So then he's starting to understand, okay, you're a foreigner, so do you understand what the speed limit is over here? And then of course I'm looking, and there's a sign that's legitimately just a couple of meters away from me, and I just say 50. I see that the sign says 50, and he says, well, this is an area that you go 50 miles an hour, and I got you right here on the gun going 60. Are you understanding about this? And I said, okay, I am fully understanding about this, and I'm taking an understanding that going over is wrong, especially in this area. But it wasn't only until I was kind of like, telling him I'm apologizing, I am, not used to the driving around here, I am a foreigner and all this. But one thing that caught his attention was the fact that my car at the moment is completely stickered out right now with Iglesia Ni Cristo, which is my church. And he looks at me and says, "You're Iglesia, po?" And I said, "Oh, yes, po. Yes, po. I'm a deacon in my locale and in my hometown." And I mentioned all this stuff to him, and then he had a complete change of heart. Like everything was, "Oh, sorry about that, brother, and please just understand that in this area, we respect going the speed limit here. So if you wouldn't mind just going the speed limit throughout this entire city, it would be very much appreciated and respected." And then I said, "Oh, absolutely. I will do exactly just that." And ends up giving me a little fist bump and says thank you and continue on. And that's it. There was no citation, no, typically there's like tricycles that are waiting for people who may end up having to leave their car because they are not allowed to go in the car anymore from that point or whatever. But I got blessed to say, because this officer was also an Iglesia Ni Cristo, that he gave me a minor pass. And I'll say a minor pass because it is a changer in my mind now to know that there are areas that you should be respecting for that. And why I had mentioned a little bit earlier to say, there are good people that will help you out. And especially in my church in the Philippines, they look to help out all the brethren as much as possible. And he understood that I was a foreigner. He understood that I was here as a church member, and probably had a lot of different reasons to say why I could have been here without me necessarily even needing to explain it. But he let me go, and that is something I can only say I am extremely grateful for, because I knew I could have been receiving my first citation. I could have been, had my car taken while trying to go and pick up my wife. But having faith in something sometimes can always be a blessing in disguise in one way or another. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please leave a like and a comment for anything else. Subscribe. My name is Cab, and I'm here to drive you crazy. Aloha, God bless, and take care.